What is a system? A system is a set or arrangement of things so related or connected as to form a unity or organic whole. Not organic matter, but to be organized. It's the nth degree of order. A system is a set of facts, principles, rules, etc., classified or arranged in a regular, orderly form. Does anybody ever think of Christian Science that way? As to be so orderly, an orderly form, so as to show a logical plan linking the various parts. A system is a method or plan of classification or arrangement. A system is an established way of doing something, a method, a procedure, orderliness or methodical planning in one's way of proceeding. Again, we hear levels of how a system implies method. The method has many meanings to it, even right down to the way of showing us how to proceed. And if we're going to give a Christian Science treatment, we need to know how to proceed. Don't we? Did you ever ask anybody how to give a Christian Science treatment, how to proceed? Did you get an answer? No. That's what I thought. So this is one of the criticisms of us, that we are always speaking about system. And that John Dorley, who I will tell you a little bit more about in a minute, was always talking about system. Isn't this contrived? Isn't this cold? Where do you get this concept? Where do you get off talking about system all the time? Well, we get it in the textbook. We find it in the textbook. If you ever want to know about something, anything, go to the textbook. Don't ask someone else. Go to the textbook to find it. What does Mrs. Eddy say in the textbook about system? Well, she speaks there about system in the following ways. The first thing she says is that she refers to her system. Right in the preface, on page 8 of the preface, her system, as though to say, I have a system that I'm presenting you. I'm presenting you with a system. Her system. Then my metaphysical system. This system, talking about Christian Science, and then saying this system has gradually gained ground. This system enables the learner to demonstrate. This system accomplishes good. She speaks of the scientific system of divine healing. She speaks of the Christian system, of Jesus' system of healing, of the system of hygiene. And what is the system of hygiene? She says it's Christian Science. Christian Science is the system of hygiene. Of our system of mind healing, of the pathological system of Christianity, of the scientific system of divine healing, of the scientific system of ethics, of moral system, spiritual system, the system taught in this book. She says that Christian Science is a system which works according to the Scriptures, that Christian Science is a system which has scriptural authority, that the system is stated in her book, that the system is Christianly scientific. And when she would speak of system in a negative way, it would be in the following way: about false systems, human systems, material systems, systems of human opinions, educational systems of the pharaohs, false systems, man-made systems, material systems, medical, ancient, modern systems, systems of medicine, physics, religion, old systems, other systems. So where do we get the idea that Christian Science is a system? It's taught to us in our textbook. It says so right in the textbook. And so you see that our sense of the Church of Christ is now evolving, even as we speak, that we see that that Church of Christ must be the structure of the Christ. It implies that the Christ science has a structure, that the Christ science has a system, that there is a science of the Christ. And if you have a science, you have elements. You have elements in relationship. You know that in all of the various disciplines today, the forward-thinking individuals in those disciplines are beginning to see the most wonderful things, the most exciting things. You know what they see? They see that there is a principle at work. Now, this isn't me saying this. This is actually what they say. There is an immaterial principle, and it is at work in nature, and it is at work in consciousness, that it stands above, that it operates lawfully, but that it does not operate in accord with the old sense of laws as merely cause and effect. That this principle is neither humanly subjective nor humanly objective, that it is beyond subjectivity, human subjectivity and human objectivity. And do you know what they call it? A principle of self-organization. They say that there is a principle of self-organization that stands behind the whole universe and is restructuring the universe, restructuring and restructuring the universe, and that this is the new view of evolution. The new view of evolution. Can you hear that the world begins to feel what we understand as the principle of Christian Science, as that self-organizing principle of Christian Science, that it is breaking in everywhere, and wherever you have a transparent consciousness, wherever you have an individual who is open to the newness, that is familiar with his science, with the principles of his science, with the elements, the constituents, the laws, the whole scientific framework of his science, he will be open to the breaking in of that newness. And so you can begin to see that that Christian Science is the world, and that the world begins to feel that there is another law and another set of laws that is governing everything, governing the cosmos, running the cosmos. Yeah. And within that principle, they see are two forces that look like they would be against each other, but they are complementary to each other. And those two forces are destruction and construction. destruction and construction. They work together. That the self-organizing principle, as it is bringing in the new structure, will break down the old structure, will destroy the old structure, and construct the new structure. Yeah. This is all built into the principle. Yeah. This is the world that says this, that feels this, that feels exactly what we have been seeing today, thus far, of what is at work, of how the divine principle works. So as we touch the concept of system, of science, we have to ask then, what constitutes that divine principle? What constitutes the system and science of that principle? This is what John Dorley asked. I've mentioned John Dorley here and there since we started our talk, but I have not really told you a great deal about him, anything really about him, except his love for the days of creation. I was waiting until now to give you a little bit of a story about what John Dorley is all about. And I'd like to take just a few minutes to do that, and then to tell you about Max Kapler, who Max Kapler is. And would that be all right for me to do that? Good. Well, John Dorley, CSB of London, England, was the one who discovered, we could almost say he discovered, Mrs. Eddy's discovery. He discovered that Mrs. Eddy had indeed presented science in its highest and purest sense. And he was the first one to elucidate the fundamentals of that science. He was the first one to ask all the questions that we've been asking tonight, and to devote his life to the finding of the answers to those questions. He set forth the fundamentals, he found the fundamentals and the system of Christian Science, and so interpreted that divine principle through its system and categories. He could see that Mrs. Eddy had given us the 7 synonymous terms for God, that these 7 synonymous terms constituted the nature of God, the elements of the system, and that those elements operate, that they operate as a calculus of ideas. So he discerned the divine system of reference that Mrs. Eddy had given. Her system, as she said, my system. He found that system, what it was. What was his background? What gave him the right to do that, or what kind of a... What gave him the right to do that? Yes. Who gave him the right to do that? Nobody. Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful to see his life story. He became interested in Christian Science in 1902 and joined the Mother Church in 1904. He was listed in the journal as a practitioner in 1907. After that time, he had primary class and was accepted for the 1910 normal class with Bicknell Young. And having gone through the normal class, he naturally became an authorized teacher. In 1914, he was appointed lecturer for the Mother Church, and he lectured until 1929. During that time, in 1918, he became president of the Mother Church, and this was during the critical years of the litigation. And so we see that during a very critical period of the history of the Christian Science Church organization, that John Dorley was on the scene and that he was prominent and very well thought of, very distinguished as a teacher, lecturer, and practitioner. He decided in 1929 to leave what he was doing in the field in order to devote more time to the Bible and to the textbook and to the search for better healing. He taught and practiced Christian Science for 47 years, and in his wake left countless healings and remarkable demonstrations of Christian Science. During the time that he lectured all over the world. He once gave a lecture here in the Hollywood Bowl, I understand, and filled the bowl. He taught that Christian Science is an ordered and scientific as well as a Christian system. And in the early 40s, his research began to crystallize as it hadn't before. In other words, it was gathering momentum, and he began to discern in a clearer and clearer way what the constituents of the science are in its wholeness. And that enabled him to utilize the key to the scriptures in the textbook to unlock the science of the Bible. He spent his remaining years unlocking the Bible in its science. During the 40s, he was compelled to do his work outside of the Christian Science organization, having come under severe criticism from the Mother Church. The criticism from Boston I find very interesting and entertaining. The criticisms include the following: that he used an undue number of quotations from Science and Health, that in his teaching he could be criticized on 2 counts: that he did not adhere to the chapter recapitulation sufficiently. He brought in so many other aspects of science, so much clarification of science on science, that the Mother Church said were not strictly within the framework of the chapter recapitulation. That was one side of the criticism coin. The other side was that he was criticized for putting excessive importance on the question, what is God?